Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the COP28 World Bank Group Pavilion session on fast-tracking water security for climate adaptation and mitigation. This is day 10 of COP28, and we're saving the best for last. This is water. As we all know, climate is experienced through water, whether it's droughts, whether it's floods. Climate health events are experienced through water, whether it's malaria, cholera. And we know that water is severely impacted by climate events. At the same time, we know that water is central to adaptation and resilience for our communities. And let's not forget, water and sanitation also play an important role on mitigation. My name is Yogita Mamsen. I'm the Water Global Practice Manager for the World Bank. And I'm very pleased and honored to be here with an illustrious panel. We will have speaking today His Excellency, the Minister of Water Resources from Nigeria. We will have Her Excellency, Senior Secretary from India, of Ministry of Jal Shakti. And we will have the CEO International of Suez, and we will have also the Assistant Minister for Senegal for water supply and sanitation and resources. I will start briefly with an introduction on what it means for fast-tracking water security for climate adaptation and mitigation for us at the World Bank Group. Water security is the availability of an acceptable quantity and quality of water for health, livelihoods, ecosystems, and production, coupled with an acceptable level of water-related risks to people, environments, and economies. And the topics we'll be discussing today is why do we need to fast-track water security and climate adaptation? And then we'll be speaking specifically about the World Bank Group's Global Challenge Program, World Bank Group's activities to be addressing water security and how we plan to achieve these ambitions. So we know that water is an essential resource touching every aspect of development. If we fail on water, we fail on most sustainable development goals. So not just Sustainable Development Goal 6, which water is central to, but all sustainable development goals. The challenges we see currently are limited, ineffective intersectoral coordination, inefficient operations and weak enabling environments, and of course, underinvestment in water systems and services. And we know that the global water crisis disproportionately affects the poor. There's too much, too little, and too polluted. So for some data points, 23% of the world's population faces significant flood risks. And climate change is increasing intense rainfall, causing floods and other devastation. And it's too little. 2.3 billion people lack access to safely managed water. 1.2 billion people live in areas affected by water shortages. Food demand is expected to rise by 60% by 2015, yet dry shocks reduce agricultural productivity 7 to 14%. And then, of course, water is too polluted. We're seeing that wastewater is not collected or treated. 3.5 billion people lack access to safely managed sanitation. And resultingly, there's 83% decline in abundance of freshwater species since 1970. And we're here at COP, and it's all about climate. And despite our efforts, the challenges are increasing, largely, not only because of climate change. Climate change is increasing water-related risks. By 2050, 1.6 people will be at risk of floods. Feeding an additional 2 billion people by 2050 puts more pressure on water to produce food on a livable planet. And in some cases, we could even see direct impacts. We can quantify these direct impacts. GDP growth rates could decline by as much as 6% by 2050 in the Middle East and North Africa as a result of water-related losses. And as I said in the very beginning, climate change manifests through the water cycle. At the World Bank, we have been working with our clients on country climate development reports, where we look at the impact of climate on development on peoples and planet. And some statistics here on a couple of countries as examples. Iraq's water availability could decline by 13 to 28% by 2050 due to climate change. And Honduras is likely to experience a sea level rise of 20 to 30 centimeters, with larger increases on the Atlantic coast by 2050. So we at the World Bank Group are working to support our clients adapt to these situations and help mitigate climate change, which is experienced through the water cycle. So what are our clients, what do they want? They want strengthened water security and climate adaptation through systems change and investment in water, water supply and sanitation, irrigation, and disaster risk reduction. So how are we responding? We're working to support our clients on universal access to water supply and sanitation, scaling up resilient irrigation, climate resilient irrigation, helping reduce floods and droughts by sustainably managing water resources, and we're focusing particularly on fragile, conflict, and violent affected settings. Through all of this, we'll be looking at applying a private sector lens. We'll be talking a bit about that today as well. And it's very much about working with our partners, and I'll talk more about this as well. Mobilizing private capital, working with the other multi-development banks, and looking at cross-sectoral approaches. Basically, this is a slide which is really about that we're going to be working across the World Bank Group and across our partners. We'll be bringing together knowledge, learning from our operations, learning from what we do on the ground, learning from our clients, bringing that knowledge at a global scale and seeing how we can transfer lessons as appropriate, and taking that knowledge back to bring innovation to our clients. It's a virtual cycle of doing, learning, improving. And central to this is technology. For example, smart grids, AI, also innovative ways to contract, PPPs and concessions, performance-based contracts, and looking at different forms of financing. The World Bank Group is the largest multilateral financier of climate change and water in developing countries. And we are all over the world, both very much decentralized on the ground with our headquarters in Washington, D.C. But we don't do this alone. We work with our clients, we work with our partners. And we're very excited to hear from some of them today. So without much ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers, our panelists, where we can hear directly about what they are doing to tackle the challenge of water security. We will start with His Excellency, Engineer Professor Joseph Telrum Utsev, Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation from Nigeria. He's connected virtually, and he's going to tell us a little bit about Nigeria's vision on the water and agricultural nexus, in particular the linkages with climate resilient irrigation and water and food security. Welcome, Honorable Minister. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, all. Thank you for that presentation. There was actually a loss of sound in the course of the presentation, but we in Nigeria, we have a lot that we are doing concerning water and sanitation as it relates to climate change. Water, as we all know, is a key driver of boosting economic growth and maximizing share prosperity and achieving water security, which we in Nigeria is very critical to us. And we're trying our best to reach its full potentials. The government of Nigeria seeks to assure food security to lift out poverty of its huge population. This will require boosting economic growth, maximizing demand, capital and building resilience in the face of a more extreme and unpredicted climate. Population growth and climate change impacts are exerting more pressure on available water and land resources. And we have a lot of activities that we are carrying out in the area of water resources and sanitation. We're trying so much to see how we can boost our dams, we can improve our dry season irrigation. But dams construction here in Nigeria, as we all know, has different purposes. The purpose of hydropower, establishment, irrigation, farming, and water supply. Those are one of the areas that we are working on, and we are trying to maximize its potentials. In the area of sanitation, the open defecation-free program that we have embarked on, we have a program called the Clean Nigerian Campaign, which by the year 2025, we want to make sure that Nigeria is open defecation-free, and we are working tirelessly on that. A major pillar of the Renew Hope agenda of the federal government is achieving food security through support to irrigated agriculture. It supports the federal government national program on developing 500,000 hectares of irrigated lands by the year 2030. Already, several projects are ongoing that will contribute to that national goal. The projects are directly contributing to the nation's economic recovery by 1, supporting food security and self-sufficiency, 2, creating jobs and livelihood opportunities in rural areas, and 3, discouraging rural-urban migration, which directly affects the spread of disease and increase urban poverty. Some of the programs for the development of water resources in Nigeria include a national irrigation development program, the identification of dams with hydropower, electricity potential for development, then developing and implementing a national water supply and sanitation program to attain SDGs, and development of blueprint and action plan to strengthen the river basin development authorities in Nigeria. Nigeria needs the continued support of the developmental partners to reach its water resources management development goals. The World Bank has been supporting the government through policy dialogue on water security and water governance, and through critical investment on irrigation development, agricultural value chains, and integrated water resources management. Institutional development, for example, the Transforming Irrigation Management in Nigeria program, which is called the TRIMAIN, is a very good program that the World Bank is supporting Nigeria, and it's making so much impact. It's making huge impact in the country. So we are presently, the World Bank is supporting Nigeria to prepare another project on sustainable power and irrigation in Nigeria, with the development objective being to improve utilization of existing storage for irrigation and hydropower generation, improve water resources management for agricultural development, and strengthen institutional arrangements for integrated water resources management in Nigeria. The vision of the SPIM project builds on the success of the Transforming Irrigation Management in Nigeria project, and is focused on addressing food insecurity and poverty in Nigeria. Also, the project aims at supporting the government to create sustainable governance structures and institutions on integrated water resources management in Nigeria. To conclude, and especially during times of flood emergency, Nigeria recognizes the critical importance of building resilience in systems and institutions to adequately respond to the challenges associated with climate escalated water security risk. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And it's great to hear about the wide array of activities in Nigeria spanning from water supply, sanitation, work on dams, rivers, and now moving towards your ambitious program on SPIN. Thank you very much for your intervention. Let's now move to the Senior Secretary, Ms. Debashri Mukherjee, Ministry of Jal Shakti in India, where Madam Mukherjee will talk about India's intervention on scaling up and accelerating water security efforts in light of climate change impacts, drawing from India's National Water Program. Over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes, very much so.
Thank you. I'm sorry, there seems to be a problem with my video, but again, good morning to everybody. And it's my privilege to speak about the work that India is doing on trying to scale up water security across communities within the country. I think everybody here is aware that India's investing a huge amount on universalizing services, both water supply as well as sanitation services. So we executed an ambitious Swachh Bharat mission, which was to sanitation for all. And now we are investing huge amounts in ensuring drinking water in every household. This is called the Jal Jeevan Mission. Now, the challenge before us is to be able to sustain these investments, particularly in light of climate change, where we are already seeing the change in the water cycle, both in terms of spatial as well as temporal variation. So I'm going to talk about three big areas of work that we're looking at. We are looking at, and not in any particular order. One is looking at improving and managing storage sustainably. And when I talk about storage, this is storage in our dams and reservoirs. It is storage in our surface water systems, and it is also storage underground, also better management of groundwater. The second big area of work is looking at the improving river health. And this we're doing through our Namami Gange program, which is one of the largest holistic river basin management programs, improving the quality of river water, but also extending it now to a whole what we call Arth Ganga. So the economies around a river basin and the economies around the river. The third area is, again, improving water use efficiency, but with greater focus on irrigation, because it is agriculture that uses the maximum amount of water. Almost 87% of our water use is agriculture. So our big focus area is improving water use efficiency in agriculture. So in this context, I will just focus on 2 or 3 programs that we're doing. We're doing much more than this, but just in terms of focus. So looking at the issue of climate variation, as well as the need to improve storage, we have a very large dams rehabilitation and improvement program. Institutionally, this works in tandem with our Dam Safety Act, which requires dam owners and operators to do a range of things that keeps their dams in better working health. The focus of this is really to ensure that water infrastructure, large water infrastructure that is created, is better maintained, is better operated, and also to ensure that their working lives are longer, so that this infrastructure is fit for purpose. To do that, we have done, we're working with now more than 800 dams, but India is the 3rd largest dam owning country in the world. So we're working, at this point, we're working with more than 800 dams in more than 19 states. And we are creating processes We are creating processes, operating standards that improve the maintenance of dams across the country. We are also faced with a major challenge of sediment management, which reduces the life of reservoirs. And part of our action under the Dam Rehabilitation and Improvement Program is also manage sediment sustainably, so that we can maintain and augment our storage. The other big program that we have is which is supposed to both manage our surface water storage and our groundwater storage better, is a national call to action at the before the monsoons every year, which we call the Jal Shakti Abhiyan. This is steered by the national government, but it involves the state governments, it involves communities, it involves villages, towns, to manage their water storage. So ponds, water bodies are mapped, they're cleaned, rainwater harvesting structures are built and better maintained, so that we can harvest our rainwater and enhance the storage, so that the longer dry spells can again be managed more effectively. Finally, I'd like to talk about our Atal Bhujal Yojana, which is a participatory groundwater management program. So the Jal Shakti Abhiyan, where resources go in through multiple programs, but mainly through our employment guarantee scheme, is more of a supply side intervention. The Atal Bhujal Yojana, which is working in 7 states at this point of time, and in about 80 water stressed districts, is a demand side intervention. Here we work with village communities to prepare water security plans, to prepare water budgets, to make invisible groundwater more visible, and thereafter try to improve their water security. So the village community becomes sort of custodians of their own water security. We're working in about 80 districts at this point, but the protocols and the processes that are created under the Atal Bhujal Yojana, we aim to take it forward to more than 7 lakh villages in the next 1.5 years by integrating it with our Gram Panchayat development plans through the Ministry of Panchayati Raj or local self-government. So this is where we start with a pilot. This has been supported by the World Bank, but we then institutionalize it through our national processes. Finally, I will stop. I will just mention that our Namami Gange program is strongly looking at river health, but we are also trying to extend it to another 6 major rivers in the country. And today we are also launching a global River Cities Alliance to try and improve water management in urban areas. So I would welcome as many partners as possible to be part of our Global River Cities Alliance, where we can share knowledge, where we can, on the threats that urban areas face with regard to climate change and the changing water cycle. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Senior Secretary. As in Nigeria, where we heard about water supply, the expansive activities on water supply, irrigation, water resources, the India example is very important. And from Swachh Bharat, where the big push on sanitation came first, and that's a great example of prioritizing sanitation, moving to Jal Jeevan on the water supply side. And then we heard more details on the important water resources foundational issues, which will ultimately support all services, with a deep dive on some of the issues around storage and river health, and also the mention of the importance of effective irrigation. So thank you for that intervention. And now we'll turn to the room and to our honorable speakers in the room. We'll start with Mr. Mohamed Diatta, the Advisor Minister of Water for Senegal. And we'd love to hear about water management, more broadly in Senegal, but in particular in the greater Dakar area and circular economy. Over to you.
Thank you. You heard me. Thank you, Yogita, for your invitation. I would like to thank you also for joining us in this panel. As you know, water and climate are inestably linked, and water is essential mark of climate, and climate events leaves a strong footprint on resources. And for Senegal, COP28 is a best occasion toward establishing water and climate link, because climate and water crises are affecting our economic and our societies. They also constitute a global crisis for peace and stability. We know that water is a driver for peace and for resilience. Senegal, like many countries, face significant challenges related to water security due to climate change. And according to the World Bank report on water security that you hold at the World Water Forum, thanks to the World Bank, and this report shown us that the demand are increasingly high in Senegal, between 30 and 60 by 2035, and extreme water related events and pollutions are costing Senegal 10% of his GDP. And this is very important to take care of water issues, because water is at the heart of our economy. And this report tells us also that achieving water security will require investment to promote resilience, growth, as well as key institutional reforms. And then to meet these challenges, Senegal have, over the last few years, developed several projects to adapt water and sanitation sector to climate change. I will develop on 3 flagship actions that have been implemented. First, we are developing nature-based solutions with a vast program of restoration of ecological function of the Lac de Guiers. Lac de Guiers is the main lake that provides Dakar in water. More than 60% of Dakar water consumption from this lake located around 250 kilometers from Dakar. And also we are mobilizing efforts to restore several ecosystems, mangroves, etc. The second action that I would like to highlight is the mobilizing of non-conventional water with a seawater desalination plant that we are under construction in Dakar, and the second sea desalination will be also constructed at the north of Senegal also. This shows that we are seeing alternative solutions for water crisis, because we are depending most of all of surface water and groundwater. And with the climate change, also we have to anticipate solutions that we give to people. And the third and last flagship action that we are making is managing the sanitation sectors according to the principle of circular economy. We have big projects in Senegal in sanitation areas with the reuse of water for agriculture purpose and the valorization of byproducts to reduce carbon emissions, and by using energy produced by fecal sewage. These are the main actions that we are doing. But unfortunately, progress toward SDG 6 is a crucial step toward sustainable and secure future for all. Investing in SDG 6 means that we are investing in all SDGs, because SDG 6 is interlinked with all the 16 SDGs that we have. There will be no sustainable development for our economics in Africa, particularly, without massive and effective investment in water and sanitation. It's very crucial. And developing innovative financial mechanisms such as green bonds, water and sanitation specific investment tools, funds, specific financing instruments or partnerships with financial institutions can attract private investment. We know that our countries don't have the power to finance their own key water. We need private financing also to meet this challenge. And to achieve this, countries urgently need to step a public guarantee system to reduce investment risk. Because if you want to attract private sector, we will have to guarantee to reduce the investment risk also for private sector. And risk insurance and risk sharing mechanism to encourage private sector participation. The aim is to create an incentive framework for private investment, particularly in the sanitation sector. But for my last point that I would like to raise here is we cannot fast-track the SDGs in Africa without having concrete action at basin levels, because transboundary water is crucial for building resilience, for building co-development between riparian countries, but also is very important for building peace and prosperity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Monsieur Diatta, for those very important points. And thank you for reminding about the World Water Forum, which Senegal led and so successfully, and where you launched your water security program, which is very ambitious.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned the flagship work on Lac de Guerre. The circular economy approach is very important in terms of also reuse and irrigation, where Senegal is really quite ambitious. And again, with Lac de Guerre, the importance of transboundary waters and related implications, which I didn't mention in my presentation. Thank you for flagging that very important aspect. In West Africa, all waters are transboundary, whether it's surface or groundwater. So thank you for reminding us about that. And then finally, of course, you mentioned the importance of the private sector.
Absolutely.
And bringing in the private sector, where Senegal has really been in the forefront. And the importance of de-risking, which is a very important part of the World Bank Group's work going forward, especially to bring in innovation and crowd in other resources. So that's a great segue to our next panelist, Monsieur Cyril Courgeret, CEO International at Suez. So we look forward to hearing from him on Suez's investments in sustainable technologies, climate resilient infrastructure, and other aspects he'd like to point out.
Thank you very much. Somehow you said it all in your introduction, therefore I will not come back to data because they were clearly presented, and I would like to focus on three aspects. The first one is the issue of the time to market. The second one is the need of collaborative approach to this problem. And the third one would be related to how do we collectively preserve the resources, and reuse being a big part of it. But first, let me remind you that Suez is a water and waste treatment and recovery company that has been operating for more than 160 years, and always trying to address those challenges and presenting technologies in order to be able to overcome those challenges. Time to market. Yes, it is a subject. We know that most of the time it takes around 8 to 10 years between the moment you imagine a project and the moment the project is actually built or constructed. And perhaps it doesn't reflect 10 years afterwards the reality, the new reality on which which was the idea 10 years ago. And I believe this is something that we need to shorten and to have fast-tracking, I would say, processes in order to be quicker to implement the important project. The second point I would like to mention is the collaborative idea. There has been huge opposition over the last decades between private and public entity when we were talking about water. It was a kind of ideological position on both sides, but I believe that thanks to what happened in the United Nations Water Week, when was that? In March, I believe, and before that, the World Water Forum in Dakar, things are changing, and we are understanding that at the end of the day, due to the challenges we are facing, we cannot do either one or the other, but that we need to collaborate. And I believe that Senegal has really shown the path in that perspective, both in the construction of the facilities that you were mentioning in the Lac de Guiers, but also in the service of water distribution in Dakar, where we are pleased to help developing a higher standard of service. So this collaborative action is essential. But there is a subject that goes beyond this collaborative aspect, is the fact that the industry, we are paid for the extra cubic meter that we are selling to the population. But we should change the models. We should be paid by the extra cubic meter that we are saving for the population. How do we work on saving, preserving resources? So we are in a model that has been a growing industry, in a moment where we know that the scarcity is right next door, and that we need to preserve the resources. So let's advocate for a change of model where we will be paid on a performance-based contract by saving water rather than by providing the extra cubic meter. And the third point I would like to mention is about preserving resources. When we talked about India, we are currently building the largest reuse plant in Mumbai called Worli, 500,000 cubic meters per day, and 100% of the water would go to agriculture in order to preserve the limited resources of the country. When we talk about Egypt, where thanks to one also a very large plant of Gabal El Asfar that we built partially and that we are currently operating at Suez, about half of the water is going for agriculture purposes after being treated. And I believe those are examples that are very key for the subject. But it's also key on that preserving resources matter to talk about energy and the fact that in Gabal El Asfar, for example, we are able to develop a plant that is 65% self-sufficient in terms of production of energy, thanks to the biogas that is produced in the plant. And the next generation is even better. We just signed a contract in Nice, in the south of France, for the Aliotis plant, which is a plant for the whole community of Nice, about 700,000 people. And the plant will generate 4 times as much energy as it needs to be to operate. And I believe it's a second step. We need to preserve water, but we need also to preserve and to generate the own energy that the plants need to work. And finally, I would say that the best investment is the one that you don't need to do. And I'm obviously talking about the non-revenue water and the way we need to implement that. We are losing, in some countries, up to 40 to 50% of the water that is generated. And obviously, it is better for the industry, for the politicians, for everyone to inaugurate new assets. we love to inaugurate assets. And it's much more complicated to inaugurate a project on which you are just fixing the leaks and where you are just trying to improve the existing networks. But this is something, if we want to preserve the resources, this is something that is absolutely essential to work on. So let's advocate also for those big non-revenue water projects. I know that the World Bank is currently working on that. I have the Jordan and Amman subject in mind, but many other around the world, and this is something that we need to collectively also implement. So basically, let's accelerate the time to market. Let's work on the collaborative manner so that we do not oppose private and public, but we find a joint solution. And third, let's work on preserving resources, both by working on the reuse and working on the optimization of the existing assets. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Excellent, Cyril. I won't need to summarize that because you did it so well at the end yourself. Wow, I think that this was an incredibly rich panel. And I have to say, this was day 10. Wasn't sure how we would be able to pull this off on the last day. But to have such a rich discussion from hearing from the Honorable Minister in Nigeria in an FCV, fragile conflict violence setting, Nigeria is doing so much across the spectrum on water security. And hearing from India, where there's a lot of innovation and on groundwater and on storage, on river basin management. And then in Senegal, where we were able to hear about circular economy approaches and from this government perspective, bringing in the private sector and the importance, and then innovation, and from Cyril, where he rounded off incredibly well about actually some innovative ideas on pricing, saving resources in some sense. So bringing us back to the issue of using what we have most efficiently, what we already have most efficiently, and incentivizing even more efficient use of resources, which is really at the heart of the water and climate discussion. So thank you so much. Thank you for my colleagues who were able to bring such illustrious panelists here. I really appreciate that, all the effort that were made, and for all of you to join us. Thank you so much. And I hope everyone enjoys the rest of this important, last but not least, most important day of, most important sector day, Water Day today at COP. Thank you so much.